Have you ever felt that frustrating moment when you've spent hours studying something important, only to realize you can't explain it clearly to save your life? What if I told you that some of the world's greatest geniuses, including Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman, mastered complex subjects not because of superior intelligence, but because they discovered a learning hack so powerful it can literally force your brain to absorb anything in just minutes? The gap between reading information and truly understanding it is where most of our learning efforts collapse. We highlight textbooks, create elaborate notes, and memorize facts. Yet when it comes time to apply that knowledge, our minds go blank. This isn't your fault. The traditional educational system has programmed us to learn in precisely the wrong way. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Has this ever happened to you? You confidently think you understand a subject until someone asks you to explain it, and suddenly your mind scrambles to find the words. That moment of panic isn't evidence of failure. It's actually the doorway to mastery that most people miss entirely. The revolutionary technique I'm about to share with you flips traditional learning upside down. Instead of trying to absorb complex information, Feynman discovered that true understanding begins when you force yourself to explain concepts in language so simple a child could understand it. This isn't just a study tip, it's a complete rewiring of how your brain processes information. What you're about to discover might completely transform how you learn forever. When you translate complex ideas into everyday language, something magical happens in your neural pathways. The moments where you stumble and can't find simple words, those aren't failures. They're precisely where your breakthrough learning begins, illuminating the exact gaps in your understanding that need to be filled. And that's just the beginning. Stay with me until the end, because the second transformative step in this process is even more powerful. It happens when you take that simplified understanding and attempt to teach it out loud, whether to another person or simply by speaking to an empty room. This verbalization forces your brain to organize ideas logically, creating new neural connections that solidify understanding in ways passive reading never could. The most fascinating part: when you struggle to explain something smoothly, your brain is actually highlighting the exact weak points in your knowledge, giving you a precise map of what you need to reinforce. Most people mistakenly see these struggles as proof they haven't studied enough. But what if these stumbling blocks are actually your greatest teachers? The true genius of Feynman's approach is that it transforms learning from passive consumption into active creation. And we're just scratching the surface of how this 7-minute technique can revolutionize your ability to master any subject. This dynamic process reveals a hidden truth that most educators never tell you. Once you've pinpointed those knowledge gaps through teaching, you must return to your source material, but with entirely new eyes. This third step is where the real transformation begins. When you revisit concepts after attempting to teach them, you're not just rereading passively. You're actively rebuilding your mental framework from the foundation upward. Imagine taking complex economic theories and translating them into stories about trading baseball cards, or turning abstract physics equations into visual metaphors about water flowing downhill. This mindset shift converts fragile memorization into rock-solid comprehension. If you're passionate about unlocking your mind's full potential, hit that subscribe button to join our community of lifelong learners. I share powerful techniques that have helped thousands master complex topics in record time. The journey of understanding unfolds in these precise moments. Each time you cycle through this process of simplify, teach, identify, refine, something remarkable happens behind the scenes in your brain. Neural pathways physically strengthen, connections multiply, and what once seemed impossibly complex gradually transforms into something that feels like second nature. This is why so many breakthrough moments in learning happen not during study sessions, but during these moments of reflection and re-explanation. But the impact of this approach reaches an entirely new level when you incorporate the fourth element of Feynman's technique, what I call creative repetition. Let me be clear about something crucial. This isn't about mindlessly reviewing flashcards or reciting definitions. That mechanical repetition is precisely what makes traditional learning so ineffective and, frankly, soul-crushing for most people. Instead, this approach invites you to play with knowledge, to treat information like a multifaceted jewel that reveals different aspects when viewed from different angles. Consider learning about photosynthesis. First, you might explain it using the analogy of a factory converting raw materials into energy. Then, describe it as a solar power system. Finally, frame it as a chemical recipe. The revelations come when you understand what's happening within your cognitive architecture. Your brain doesn't store information in isolated files. It creates vast networks of associations. When you present the same concept through different metaphors, stories, and contexts, you're building multiple neural pathways to the same knowledge. This doesn't just help you remember, it fundamentally changes how deeply you understand. This playful exploration triggers something else profoundly important: pleasure. When learning feels like creative discovery rather than forced obligation, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurochemical involved in reward and motivation. This is why children learn so quickly through play. They're not just memorizing, they're experiencing the joy of discovery. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what happens when this method encounters its greatest catalyst, the moment of error. Because contrary to everything most educational systems have taught us, mistakes aren't failures. They're the essential ingredients of mastery. If these ideas are resonating with you, write "Mind Unlocked" in the comments, because that's literally what happens when you apply these principles. The moment of error is where the true evolution of your mind takes place. When you attempt to explain a concept and stumble, most people experience a flash of embarrassment or frustration. That emotional response is so deeply ingrained that we instinctively avoid situations where we might be wrong. But this avoidance is precisely what prevents breakthrough learning in nearly every area of life. What if we completely flip the script on this mindset? What if mistakes weren't failures at all, but precise diagnostic tools revealing exactly where your understanding needs reinforcement? This perspective shift transforms learning from a pass-fail exercise into a journey of continuous discovery. Each error becomes a compass pointing directly to the gaps in your knowledge map. Consider this real-world scenario. You're explaining probability theory and suddenly can't articulate why independent events remain unaffected by previous outcomes. That stumbling point isn't random. It's your mind highlighting exactly where the weak connection exists. Instead of glossing over it with embarrassment, lean into that moment with curiosity. Ask yourself, what specifically caused me to get this wrong? This single question activates a different part of your brain, turning judgment into investigation. Behind the scenes, what's happening is fascinating. When you approach errors with curiosity instead of judgment, you're rewiring your emotional relationship with learning itself. The fear response diminishes, and your cognitive resources focus on building bridges across those knowledge gaps. Each mistake becomes not just accepted, but valued as an essential ingredient in your learning recipe. But let's be honest about something that's often missing from conversations about learning techniques. None of this works without disciplined effort. The uncomfortable truth is that mastery requires work. Consistent, challenging, sometimes tedious work. The brain, like any muscle, needs resistance to grow stronger. There are no shortcuts to this fundamental biological reality. The revelation comes when you realize that the Feynman technique doesn't eliminate hard work. It transforms its impact. Instead of diffused effort spread across highlighting textbooks or rereading notes, your energy becomes laser-focused on the precise areas that need strengthening. It's the difference between watering an entire field, hoping something grows, versus nurturing specific plants with exactly what they need. Think of learning as building a mental cathedral. Each time you simplify a concept, each time you teach it, each time you correct an error, you're placing another stone in the foundation. The transformation doesn't happen overnight, but brick by brick, connection by connection, your understanding becomes more solid and more beautiful. The mindset shift required here is profound. We've been conditioned to view learning as a series of achievements, grades, credentials, passing tests, but true mastery comes from viewing learning as an ongoing practice. Much like meditation or athletic training, there are no finish lines, only deeper levels of understanding and connection. If you've experienced moments where seemingly unrelated concepts suddenly connect in your mind, creating an entirely new level of insight, type "connections forming" in the comments, because that's exactly the kind of neural architecture you're building with this approach. So now you have it, the complete Feynman technique for forcing your mind to learn anything. Remember that what separates those who truly master a subject from those who merely study it isn't some innate genius, but rather fundamental approach to how they process information. Your mind is an incredible learning machine when you give it the right inputs and challenges. I hope you found value in this exploration of how we can all learn more effectively. If you're someone who's constantly curious about unlocking your full potential and understanding the hidden mechanics of how our minds work, you'll feel right at home on this channel. We dive deep into these transformative ideas every week, breaking down complex concepts into practical wisdom you can apply immediately. If this approach to learning resonated with you, I'd love to know you're part of this journey. Type "My learning is transformed" in the comments so I know we're connected on this path together. Your engagement helps me understand what topics matter most to this community of lifelong learners we're building. And if you found this valuable, that simple click on the like button tells me to keep creating content that challenges conventional thinking about how we learn and grow. It makes a tremendous difference in helping others discover these ideas too. I've prepared a video right here that explores how to apply these exact learning principles to master a new language in record time, even if you've struggled with language learning before. Click and continue with me over there to see how these same techniques create remarkable results in a completely different domain. I think you'll be surprised by just how quickly your mind can adapt when given the right framework. See you there.